The White Sox rally falls short thanks to a terrible call by the second base umpire. Let's discuss the Sox getting screwed next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. Also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button and also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. And the White Sox, well, they did not quit against the Baltimore Orioles. They were down 8-2, and the Sox scored 4 runs in the ninth. And they had the tying runs on base and the winning run at the plate. And then the second base umpire made a terrible call on Andrew Benintendi's pop-up that also ruled Andrew Vaughn out. I'll discuss the terrible call and the Sox not quitting against one of the best teams in baseball. Then let's discuss what exactly does Mike Clevinger do here? And finally, how did the Baltimore Orioles become so good? And how can the White Sox use that as a roadmap toward getting back to being competitive? Well, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, so this game was trending toward being the Sox finishing as non-competitive. The Sox did have a 2-1 lead early, but Mike Clevinger coughed it up, and I'll address him in the next segment. But again, it was trending toward the second straight blowout loss. You know, I discussed that yesterday when the Sox were blown up by Toronto on Wednesday. The Sox were down 8-2 heading into the ninth. And instead of dying quickly like they did on Wednesday, the first 6 hitters reached base off relievers Jonathan Heasley and Yennier Cano. Corey Julks, he led off the inning with a walk, and thankfully he was inserted into the game late after Dominic Fletcher was terrible at the plate. Please keep playing Julks. If anything, let's see if this is more than just a hot streak. And if it is a hot streak, well, keep playing him until the heater cools off. Danny Mendick also walked, and then Tommy Pham, he drives in Julks with a single. Nicky Lopez, he loaded the bases with a single. And then Cano, he comes in and properly hits Andrew Vaughn with a pitch. So Danny Mendick now has scored. Gavin Sheets, he squibs an RBI single to score Pham and Lopez and moves Vaughn to second. Now, it's important to remember, Vaughn is on second because after Nick DeLoach struck out swinging, we enter old friend Craig Kimbrell. He comes in out of the bullpen. You guys remember Craig and his failed tenure in 2021. Although Tony La Russa refused to pair him correctly with Liam Hendricks. Anyways, the future Hall of Fame closer is now with the Orioles. He comes on, and he got Andrew Benintendi to pop up, and the infield fly rule is called. Okay, he's out. You still should have Vaughn, and then Remillard came in to pinch run for Gavin Sheets. Still having an attempt to either tie or win the game. But Vaughn was called out for interfering with Gunnar Henderson's attempt to field the pop-up. Game over. Except if that is interference, then I'm also 7 feet tall. And trust me, guys, I will never be confused for being 7 feet tall. Henderson barely brushes with Vaughn. And Vaughn was just returning to second base like he's entitled to. and also a few beats past before Henderson fields the ball. I mean, Vaughn could have went back to second, ordered a pizza, and gotten his DoorDash delivered almost with the amount of time that passed. Okay, slight exaggeration, but it wasn't like he was exactly boxing him out, preventing him from being able to make the play. And the Orioles knew they got away with one. Even the manager, even the Orioles manager said after the game, "We escaped." The television broadcast, I went back and I watched a condensed game because I try to make sure I don't miss anything. Even MASN said, "Well, by hook or by crook." White Sox manager Pedro Grifol, he tried to argue. And the first time I ever see an umpire actually reverse a call because of an argument will be the day I'm 7 feet tall. Now, crew chief Adrian Johnson, he did speak to the pool reporter after the game. This is from the AP story. He said there is no discretion when a base runner appears to make incidental contact with a fielder, even if the play results in a defensive out. Quote, "If he hinders the fielder in an attempt to field a batted ball, intent is not required and it's interference," Johnson said after third base umpire Junior Valentine made the game-ending call. Although it looked like the second base umpire made the call. So, that's what it looked like to me. But, quote, "When you see the interference, you call it," end quote. "And when you see a strike, you should call it, but that doesn't always happen." This is why I will advocate for robo umpires behind home plate, or at least a appeal system like they have in tennis on at least the called third strike. But at least have a sky ump, or New York should have been able to review and say, okay, even though there's intent, even though there's a brush and there's no intent, let's get to the spirit of the rule. And even Pedro said after the game, that's a bad rule. The rule should be, did you actually interfere where a play could not even be remotely made? And also, Gunnar Henderson, he's got some responsibility in it. He took the line. What's Vaughn supposed to do? Stop, let Gunnar run through? What if there's a trip up? Incidental. Is he out then? There needs to be some discretion. That call seemed to me like the umpires were like, you know what? We got reservations. Let's get out of here. Although the Sox do bear some responsibility, because don't put yourself in a position like that. Score some runs beforehand. Don't get down 8-2. One example, the Sox had bases loaded in the first, and they walked away with one run. They stranded 9 runners. 9 runners. 9 times. No, they stranded 9 runners, and they got out-homered again. So don't put yourself in that position. And then before I wrap up the segment, there was at least some good with that rally. And in this game, Andrew Benintendi, who has been awful this season, had 2 RBIs. Andrew Vaughn also had a hit. So at least we got some production out of the bad Andrews. And Gavin Sheets, he gets on base. 3 walks as well, and that RBI hit in the 9th. And it was just nice to see the Sox not roll over and die. But the other reason the Sox were in this hole to begin with was because Mike Clevinger was once again ineffective on the mound. So let's discuss why he is this week's "What is it you say you do here" player. Why he shouldn't be on this team anymore. Next on Locked On White Sox. Spring is here, so it's out with the old and in with the new. But don't splurge on anything new without getting cash back in return when you use Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you are beating inflation no matter what you are purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. And order supplies from a website that's made for skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trade Master program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make sure to switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox and the Baltimore Orioles play Game 2 of this 4-game set tonight. First pitch is 6:40 Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM or the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I guess I misheard it, but I know the Chuck Garfine's White Sox Talk podcast interview with Paul Janisch is out. I'm really looking forward to hearing that. I know Sox Machine, they do a great podcast. Future Sox. I mean, there's a lot of great White Sox content out there, and especially podcasts. There's probably like 7 podcasts for every 10 fans. I just ask that I'm the first. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. And again, smash the like button. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. So remember how yesterday I railed against the Sox wasting Nick Nastrini's development timeline to get Brad Keller those all-important 2 starts? You know, they needed to see, can Brad Keller have some trade value? And nope, he does not. Well, they're doing the same thing with Jonathan Cannon, only this time it is Mike Clevinger who's blocking his spot in the rotation. Because Clevinger, in his 4th start this season, once again, cannot get through 5 innings. And he is this week's what is it you say you do here player. He was ineffective through 4 2/3 innings as he allowed 5 earned runs, 7 hits, 3 walks, struck out 5, and gave up 2 home runs. And on those 2 home runs and basically almost all his 7 hits, he was leaving pitches up over the plate, and he got his pitch count up way, way too high. Again, 4 straight games. I'd say 3 because his first start. No, yeah, 4 because he was terrible in his first start of the season. I knew he was going to be limited in that first start against the Rays, but he was just downright awful. He now has a 6.75 ERA and a 1.94 WHIP. Not exactly building up that trade value that the Sox front office is hoping for. He looks nothing like the pitcher that was their statistically best starting pitcher last season. And you can say, well, you're piling it on, Todd, because you don't like Mike Clevinger. Correct. Not many people do. He's not a very good human being, reportedly. And again, after these 4 starts, it's really worth asking, what does Mike Clevinger do? What is he doing on this roster? He is wasting our time. He can't go more than 4 2/3 innings. And this is a veteran we're talking about. Yes, he was signed after spring training, but he went to AAA, got some starts there. He should be built up by now to at least try to give you 5 innings. And he's ineffective. He's not commanding his pitches. He does not look right when he's making most of his pitches, and he doesn't even look like he's in shape. I hate to say it, but he doesn't. He doesn't look strong out there after like the 2nd inning. He was laboring again. He's been ineffective, much like Brad Keller. And they gave Brad Keller 2 starts, and they DFA'd him. And I was hoping after the game that the Sox would do the same thing. You know, you'd see that tweet maybe from James Fegan saying, sources report, you know, Clevinger's been DFA'd. But here's the difference. I believe Keller was on a veteran minimum. Clevinger is, I believe, on a $3 million deal. Probably prorated, but either way, he's making a little bit more money. And again, this team, for some reason, values him. 29, it's like a broken record, but it's true. 29 other teams twice have passed on him on the open market. And yet the Sox the Sox brought him to this team over a cloud of controversy. Huge public relations nightmare. And then they had an exit ramp. They didn't have to bring him back, and they did. And now he's ruining Jonathan Cannon's development timeline. You know, he should be up instead. He should be getting the innings. And if he gets roughed up roughed up like Nick Nastrini does, at least it's a learning experience. You're wasting the limited proverbial bullets in Jonathan Cannon's arm in AAA for the false hope that Mike Clevinger will build up trade value and bring you back a piece that you can build around, or that'll help be part of the next good team. It's not happening. And again, this team is actually better without Mike Clevinger. I will die on that hill. Sox lost 101 games last year. And I don't like doing records, but Mike Clevinger only went 9-9. It wasn't like, he was the rotational stopper. He was just, he had good statistics, but he was also hurt. And he also brought you terrible PR. And you waived him to try to get rid of his salary, and no one wanted him. Give him the quick hook. Get Jonathan Cannon up here. If you want to put Michael Soroka back in the rotation to see, he's been okay in the bullpen since he's been demoted, I wouldn't even mind that. Because at least Soroka has a track record of actually being like a top of the rotation pitcher, where Clevinger, he's had some good statistical years, but he's never been that guy that you're like, that's an ace. He's been at best maybe a solid number 3 pitcher. And he's wasting our time. Well, the Orioles are a contender despite the previous ownership that oversaw the rebuilding being completely dysfunctional. Let's discuss how Baltimore became a winner and how the Sox can follow that path next on Locked On White Sox. And it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Speaking of spreads, the Orioles are minus 1.5 tonight, and with Chris Flexen being shaky on the mound, probably want to hit that, even though it probably won't have a huge payout. And then you might want to go with the under on the Orioles. That line is at 8.5 right now. FanDuel has a parlay on tonight's Mavs versus T-Wolves game. They are offering a 4-leg game parlay of Kyrie Irving scoring 30 points, Karl Anthony Towns scoring 25 points, and each hitting 4 or more three-pointers. $10 on that will pay out $413.06 if it hits. I say, why not try that one? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And the White Sox and the Baltimore Orioles play game 2 of this 4-game set. First pitch is at 6:40 p.m. Central tonight. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And I'm a huge fan of actually those 6:40 first pitches. Why not? You're trying to speed up the game. Also, I get the 7 o'clock during the summer because you want to try to get more people in. People may have been done with work a little bit so they can actually get to the ballpark. But when it comes to the White Sox, unless there's a draw in town or a giveaway, I don't think guaranteed rate filled is going to be filled with a ton of people. Although that's the best time to go. Don't have to deal with the lines. And again, guaranteed rate, such an underrated park. Don't let Cubs fans fool you. It's a good park, great food. The building has been renovated now. Got renovated about 20 years ago. It's no longer, the upper deck is no longer where you need a Sherpa guide to get up there. And also, again, I want to thank you everydayers for sticking with me. Hope you guys will have a great Memorial Day weekend. I got kind of a low-key weekend plan. My daughter has a ballet recital tomorrow. And then otherwise, probably just going to do some cooking out, relaxing. And yes, I will fit time to watch White Sox baseball for you. The Orioles, though, they should be the envy of the White Sox, and that actually should give you some hope. Because, hey, if the Orioles can become a winner with that previous ownership group, anyone can. Well, at least it's possible. And why should the Orioles be the envy for every White Sox fan? Well, they have new ownership. And shout out to those guys that brought the sign showing Jerry as with the bozo nose and saying sell the team. I'm with you. Jerry, sell the team. But the Orioles, they have new ownership. They have a great team. They are willing to make big moves to complement the young talent that they drafted. They seem like a stable franchise now. And again, they draft well. The complete opposite of what has sunk the White Sox in the first place. And make no mistake about it, the Orioles have been terrible for almost a generation. They had a decent stretch between 2012 and 2016. But for pretty much all of this century and probably going back to 1998, the Orioles are usually under 500. Well, they were under 500. And they were especially a train wreck between 2018 and 2021. We talk about the 2018 Chicago White Sox being bad. The 2018 Baltimore Orioles were 47 and 115. And then in 2019, they were 54 and 108. And then in 2021, 52 and 110. And the Sox, they're actually 2 games off the 2018 pace of the Baltimore Orioles being terrible. Through 51 games of 2018, Baltimore Orioles were 17 and 34. Sox are 15 and 36. So we are still on pace for a 40-plus win season, White Sox fans. But while that losing was happening, the Orioles were building up the best farm system in baseball. And then they won 101 games last season. And how did they get there? Drafting well. Look at their first-round history going back to 2017. They drafted pitcher D.L. Hall with the 21st pick in 2017. They were able to use him to get Corbin Burns in an offseason trade to be the top of the rotation pitcher. Pitcher Grayson Rodriguez, he was picked 11th in 2018, and he only gave up 2 runs last night to the Sox and has a 3.20 ERA. Catcher Adley Rutschman, he was the number 1 overall pick in 2019. He currently has a 299, 335, 474 slash line and went 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs last night. Heston Kjerstad, he was the number 2 pick the following year. He's the number 22 overall prospect, and the Orioles don't even have a spot for him in the bigs. He is major league ready, and they can't even get him on the field. Colton Cowser, he was the number 5 overall pick, and he's already at the big leagues and has an 822 OPS in his first full season. Jackson Holliday, he's the number 1 overall. He was the number 1 overall pick in 2022. He's the top prospect in baseball. And Enrique Bradfield Jr., he was drafted last year. He's already the Orioles' 5th best prospect. And what you see is the Orioles drafting a lot of talented bats. And if you look at the Sox farm system right now, there's not a lot of talented bats outside of Colson Montgomery. Brian Ramos, obviously, we've seen that he's got some potential. And Zavala, who they got in a trade, has a lot of potential as well. But it's not like, the rest of the system has these guys that you're like, man, these guys are going to rake. Also, the Orioles hit on other picks. Gunnar Henderson was a 2nd-round pick in 2019, and he's one of the best players in baseball. Jordan Westberg, he's their starting 3rd baseman. He was an additional 1st-round pick in 2020 for the Orioles. Ryan Mountcastle, an additional 1st-round pick in 2015. He was taken at 36th overall. Cedric Mullins, he was drafted in the 13th round. Anthony Santander, he was a Rule 5 pick. So think about that. No real free agent signings and no bad money on their books in their starting lineup. And their bench, Austin Hayes, he was a 3rd-round pick. Kyle Stowers, a 2nd-round pick. And then they built the rotation through trades after Rodriguez. They got Corbin Burns, former NL Cy Young winner, in an offseason trade. And then they got Dean Kramer and Kyle Brandish during the rebuild. And then the bullpen is a mix of veteran free agent signings. Basically, the only expensive one was Kimbrel. And that usually is when you should spend money on a closer. That final piece that puts you over the top. You either develop a closer or you sign one if you want to get yourself over the top. And then it's just nothing but waiver claims, trades, or minor league free agent signings. And they're winning games on an estimated luxury payroll tax of just a little bit over $122 million, according to Fangraphs. And also, they've built a roster that fits to Camden Yards. That roster hits home runs. And Steve Stone, he was on 670 The Score yesterday. He even pointed out, you need to build a team suited to where you're going to play 81 games at. I know a power hitting team can sometimes go in scoring droughts, but your ballpark is a hitter's paradise, especially for power hitters. Get back to being a power hitting team. So the White Sox they need to mirror that. And they need to tell Jerry Reinsdorf, we need to invest in the draft. That means, and the draft is an inexact science. Stoney was on yesterday again on The Score. He pointed out Gunnar Henderson was a 2nd-round team. So not only did the Orioles pass on him once, but 29 other teams passed on him. And a couple more teams passed on him again. You know, we've seen how many number one overall picks just absolutely flame out. Think about it. Harold Baines was the first number one overall pick Hall of Famer. So it's an inexact science. But if you invest in, having that analysis, getting those data crunchers for the college players, he's talked about wanting to get more scouts. Okay, get more eyeballs on the high school players. Because avoid, there's still the flaw of you watch a player in high school, you maybe see him on his best day, but you don't see him the rest of the time. In fact, that's how the Sox had one bust of a draft pick. The story was Kenny Williams scouted one player, saw him one day, and said, that's our guy. But invest in drafting and developing. Yes, it'll cost money, but it's not going to cost the money that he despises paying on, and there's a return on investment. If you keep drafting well and you keep developing your players, you will maintain competitiveness. And you can maintain a payroll that would fit to Jerry's liking. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And I'll be back on Monday to discuss the rest of the series with the Orioles and give that minor league Monday report. Well, it's Memorial Day, so I might not be recording at my regular scheduled time at 8, but I plan on being back on Monday. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button and give a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know your thoughts on today's topics regarding the Sox getting screwed by the umps, Mike Clevinger having no value to this team, and the Sox needing to follow the Orioles' way of building up a winner. You can leave them on Twitter at ToddJDub or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you Monday.